Okay, so I have no clue if I've made a video for this before, and I've probably tried a few times here, but I feel I need to voice my opinion verbally and not just in writing. So when it comes to ICBM Classic, Aidan, and stuff like that, I got to make a few things clear here. First thing, I actually own all of the intellectual rights for ICBM. I'm not some person who just picked up the mod and continued updating it. I went to Calclavia, I got the full ownership rights of this. This includes all the intellectual right, all the ownership of the assets, the ownership of the code, the rights of the brand, anything I need to continue working on this. I didn't just get this freely too. I traded for it. I gave away some of my mods to him. It was a fair trade, and it's a permanent trade. It's not something he can pull back or anything else. So when it comes to Aidan making his own version, he was given permission by me to do this. The copyright did not give him permission to do this. He actually came to me, he talked to me. We worked out a deal and agreement. The agreement started off with I was okay with him doing his own thing. I then changed it to he has to work on it as his own product because I didn't like the idea of somebody making an unofficial version, especially Aidan. I'll get to that a little bit more. So I guess I'm actually okay with people making unofficial versions as long as they don't claim to be ICBM, as long as they don't distribute it as a download somewhere where they can get it. If they're just making a version for their friends, it's okay. The copyright I even have on there says you can make it for educational purposes and do all that kind of stuff, as I want to encourage people to learn and progress and stuff like that. Um, but the problem is when Aidan came to me for this one, I had the suspicion that he didn't intend to make an unofficial version, and it doesn't appear that actually ever happened. If we actually go to his site, he kind of almost sells it off as pretty much his own little thing here. And hold on, so if you go to the download page, it's not here on the download page. Let me try to go to the actual page here. So he basically labels it's a classic continuation of ICBM from Calclavia, uh, and he says there's a redesigned version being made by here, but he doesn't say anywhere on here it's unofficial. He doesn't say anywhere on here that I gave him permission. Uh, it actually took me a while to convince him just to do this part. He was kind of reluctant from doing this because the reality of it is me and him don't like each other, and it's been this way for quite a while. And it's not entirely my fault. And it's not entirely his fault. And I have spent multiple times trying to work out issues with us, as I don't like to hate people. He's the only person that I've ever hated in my entire life, and I don't hate him currently, but I have an incredibly strong dislike and distrust of him, and it's not unfounded. As I noted in my post to this guy who was going like, uh, "Why did why did you make whatever when there's defense tech out there? Why is Mekanism not included in Volts 2.0? And do you hate Aidan?" And as I've noted, I made a huge long post. I kind of regret writing this whole thing, but I get asked this so many times of what's my beef with Aidan? Why did I remake ICBM Classic? The reason I made ICBM Classic is just as simple as it gets. There needed to be a classic version because people didn't like the rewrite. That's literally the answer why it happened. It has always been on the list to kind of make a classic version, but the idea was going to be when I got down the road and finished writing ICBM, I was going to come back and make an add-on for ICBM that re-added all the old textures and stuff. And it was just going to be some kind of decorative mod. I ended up just making a full mod because it was easier than making an add-on. If people actually paid attention to my GitHub tracker, there was for a good while an add-on version of ICBM Classic for ICBM. This is what we originally showed Aidan. Aidan actually came to us. He's like, "Hey, you want to do things?" And there's actually, let me go back to the response here. Demon actually replied to this guy. Um, yeah, he noted the Volts 2 is a redesign pack. I'll get to that in a second. But he put this issue. So here's the original issue that ended up being open. So Aidan actually talked to Calclavia. He's like, "Hey, you want to do thing?" And then Calclavia made the mistake of telling him he could do whatever he wanted. Calclavia was actually mistaken. It took me a few days to catch up to this because it happened January 1st of last year. And we go like, "Hey, they're making a repository," and then Dmod is the one who figured out this was happening. He's like, "Hey, we were working on our own version here," and then I had to chime in and go, "Hey, you can't actually do this stuff." So we go, Calclavia. Yeah, so only Calculavi has a version to make. Because one of the things when Calculavi gave me the rights to the mod, he actually wanted to maintain rights to make his own version in case he ever decided to get back in modding, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, this whole thing goes on here. There's a big thing where I basically note that I actually have all the intellectual property rights. This is where this kind of degrades a little bit. Um, yeah, whole bunch of problems here. The thing is, ICBM was never LGBL3 or even 4 or whatever version. It's always been under Cal Calavia's educational license, which basically meant when Cal Calavia transferred the ownership to me, the license changed on that. So if everybody wants to go get through the legal bullshit and everything, yeah, that's all already been dealt with. I don't know how it ever got to an LGB3 state at any given point, and et cetera, et cetera. But I lost track of my train of thought here. But anyways, it comes down to, so the version Aidan's creating, which is Defense Tech, that's his own version. It's labeled under its own name, which is not using the ICBM brand. Not that we actually have a brand on that, but we try to ensure that there isn't mod similarity names. There's actually been quite a few people that have made unofficial versions, and I've talked to a couple different people on how to tell them, like, hey, you need to make sure this is unofficial, because once again, I'm okay with people making their own versions of ICBM. I actually really don't care. I don't care if Aidan does his own thing either. I'm going to continue to let him make Defense Tech as long as he wants, because even if I have a dislike for somebody, I do maintain a professional business ethic with as people as much as possible. And this has happened to anybody who's ever done anything wrong to me. I'll maintain a professional business ethic. If we need to get work done, we'll get work done. Like if Aidan decides to come in and want to work with me on some mod, I'll actually work with him. I don't really care. I'm not going to hold some personal grudge over stupidity things, especially when it affects users, which is one of the thought processes that came in when he wanted to make Defense Tech. Is I was like, you know what, that'll be a good idea. If he actually takes the time and he makes a proper mod and he makes it really, really good, then users can enjoy something. And that was the idea, because when I was, at the time, I was rewriting ICBM, and I didn't necessarily have a lot of functionality and everything, because I was kind of having trouble finding motivation working on the mods, and that's the reason why some of my mods stagnated for such the longest time. Is after I left the Universal Electricity team, I was struggling with the idea of whether or not I wanted to quit, and this kind of stacked up and everything. And this is probably one of the original reasons where I kind of broke down and let him make his own version in the first place. Is I was like, you know what, I just let him do whatever he wants. I don't care anymore. Um, but yeah, let's move on to a different thing. So the reason why Mekanism isn't in Volts 2.0 is just as simple as it gets. It has nothing to do with Aidan, has nothing to do with Mekanism. It has to do with the concept we're trying to design for Volts 2.0. So when we started remaking it, we went through several different iterations of phase. We actually did have Mekanism some of the earlier beta phases, because Mekanism is still one of the few high-tech mods that plays well. The alternative is IC2, um, thermal expansion, immersive engineering, engineer's toolbox, which is kind of not really a large mod, it's really small. And I think there's a couple other out there, but I'm not familiar with them. So there's not a lot of options to really go with. IC2 has been overdone. It's starting to play like GregTech now too, so its add-on GregTech has kind of influenced IC2 so much that IC2 is not exactly user-friendly anymore. Thermal expansion is too simplistic. Mekanism, not too bad. It's got a lot of stuff going for it. It's got a lot of functionality. Aidan did a really good job when he made it, which is pretty nice. The mod's done really, really well. But when we kind of worked on the concept, we didn't see those mods fitting into what we wanted to do. I wanted to have a lightweight weight pack that ran highly efficient. Mekanism is not exactly the most efficient mod on the market. Thermal expansion beats it out, and even thermal expansion is not quite up where we want it to be. We're looking for really fast stuff. We're looking for great load time, a lot of flexibility. That's actually the next thing, is we want highly flexible content. The issue is Mekanism, IC2, thermal expansion, are all basically clones of each other. IC2 came out, Mekanism was a clone of IC2. Don't let anybody tell you not this. I used to work with them, and I listened to Cal Clavi and Aidan go back and forth. Mekanism was created to replace IC2. That was its original design. Cal Clavia wanted to have a universal electricity mod that beat IC2 out in every category. This is what ended up fueling Aidan to make his mod Mekanism, and kind of snowballed out of effect. I kind of blame myself and kind of blame the team how we were going for what happened with Mekanism and what happened with the team. When we created Universal Electricity Team, the goal was to create an alternative to IC2. That was the original goal that set in mind. That's the reason why Cal Clavi made the project, and then we ended up turning it into a team at some point. I saw a different objective for it, and kind of was trying to encourage a lot of the developers towards this as well. I wanted to create a community that was centered around developers that were there to help each other and work around, because there wasn't like anything like that in the Minecraft community. Most of the mod developers kind of did their own thing. They worked together, but most of them were pretty competitive and hostile towards each other. There was very little interaction. I mean, if you ever tried to go talk to somebody, like in the early days of, I tried to talk to like IC2 developers, I always got told, just go do something else. You're a nub. Which at the time I was. I was a crappy programmer. I knew this, and I'm not going to argue against this that I wasn't a crappy programmer when I started modding. That aside, Universal Electricity, I wanted to make this nice team that worked together, and I built all my mods this way. I built all my mods to serve the objective of the team. I built basic pipes, which was just meant to be a really simplistic fluid pipe mod that was going to be designed to give fluids to other machines, because we were working on power, so we had wires that would give power to other machines. We needed fluids pipes to do that. At the time, the only mod that had fluids was BuiltCraft. There weren't many pipe mods out there. So I made basic pipes, and I got it working, and it wasn't too bad. I basically cloned the wires to do this, so yeah, I wasn't a good programmer back then. I then ended up making steam power, and then after a while, I decided to rebrand basic pipes as fluid mechanic. I made a much stronger mod, much more clean, much better looking pipes. The earlier pipes were really horrible looking. I can actually show this off too. I still have some screenshots. I didn't keep many screenshots because back when I used to mod, I didn't care to keep records of anything. That wasn't my objective. My objective was making things, and I was hoping that my work would show for itself. Unfortunately, I didn't keep like this stuff, and now these days when I tell people I used to make these mods, they're like, here, show me pictures, or it didn't happen. Well, I don't really have pictures. So this should be, I think, in the game folder. Yeah, game folder, Minecraft, projects, and then we should have, yeah, steam and pipes. So here's one of the earlier pipe mods I made. These are literally the pipes. We had different collars, and each different collar was a different thing. We had a water pipe, a steam pipe, oil pipe, stuff like that. I had, I think, 16 different pipes. I eventually just made those pipes universal so you could put anything in them. It wasn't exactly the easiest thing ever, but it worked. I eventually ended up building more things. You're actually looking at some of the stuff here. The furnaces here are the heated up the boiler. So the boiler, this put steam into these little pistons. The earliest version I made was just a little Techni model that had a rod that went up and down, and it worked. We made power with it. I eventually ended up making this. There are some videos of this actually working up on my YouTube channel if you want to see it. But what I ended up actually doing is I ended up working on fluid mechanics. It was a mod. We had much more higher detail 3D pipes here. They looked much nicer. They connected. I was one of the earliest modders that had dynamic tanks. You could build your tanks any size you want. I think at the time the only mod that had this was Railcraft, but its tanks were not dynamic. They were pre-sized, and you can go up to a certain size. There was another mod that came out a couple months after Fluid Mechanics that I forget what it was called, but you could make a room and then it filled it up with fluids. I approached that concept once, but decided that gameplay-wise it wasn't there, because if you make a room-sized tank, then my brain kept telling me you want to make each fluid tile a single tile, but then that was self-defeating. I ended up actually making something really similar to it, because Fluid Mechanics eventually came out with better pumps and stuff. But my first version pumps, which is basically these, here's version 0, and then if I go back to this here was the next version. This eventually became the resin induction pump, by the way, but this is one of the later version pumps we made. But this is the version that I had. I also had, this was another pump that we made. So when the first time I actually ended up having problems with Aidan, because this is where I say I have a strong dislike and strong distrust, but it was not unfounded. I got along with him just fine. I actually didn't really pay much attention to him, other than I was like, oh, he's working on our industry mod, and hopefully he'll utilize my pipe mods down the road to make his machines work better. That was the only thing I cared about. And I didn't see anything else to do with him. I was like, you know, I would just let him do his own thing. And the earlier days of the team, we didn't really talk to each other much. And occasionally we would get together and we would do things. We would go, hey, what are we going to all be doing? I'd be like, I'll be working on the pipe some more. And Cal Clubby's like, I'll be working on the API some more. And then Aidan would be like, yeah, I'm just going to continue working on Mekanism. We had some other developers. We had Elusive Hawk, which he made his own machines and stuff. He kind of got forced out by Mekanism. Eventually we had a Machine Muse who made Power Armor. She was kind of there, but I don't really want to call her officially part of the team, because she just hung around. She didn't. I don't think she ever contributed. We ended up getting the maker of Galacticraft. He was part of the team. He actually contributed towards Universal Electricity directly eventually, just like I did. Uh, we had several other people. Like the thing is, I've told this to several people. Mekanism used to be called a mod called Green Power. It was actually made by I think 3 or 4 people. I even contributed code toward it. I wrote the solar panel code for it. I even modeled them some windmills and stuff like that early on. But the mod was abandoned and then was given to Aidan. Aidan then took all the code and made Mekanism. But moving on, the first time I had issue with him is we kind of we butted heads several times before this happened, but how it kind of worked out is one day I come into IRC chat and I notice there's been a chat log going back with me being pinged repeatedly. Aidan was openly trashing not only me, but the mods I made. He didn't know it was me, by the way, who made these mods. He's like, oh, these basic pipes mods, these are horrible. They don't run well. They don't function properly. They have all these bugs and issues. They don't load and they don't work compatible with things, which I knew, by the way, and the mod was early access. I just released the mod for download only a few days before this, and apparently he got a hold of it and decided to trash me in chat. He wasn't using my name, though, although a couple people did mention my name as the creator. I was logged in, I think, under a different name at that time, because every time you get kicked out of IRC, it'll relog you back in with a different name. So I find him trashing here, and I start interacting with the chat and going, hey, dude, this isn't very nice. And then he starts trashing me directly then, and starts saying my crap is crap, and that his stuff is better, and that we had all these issues. And the thing is, I didn't do anything to directly take this heat from him of being told that my crap was shit, which I was perfectly fine if he just told me, hey, your mod's not doing very well, but to be told my stuff wasn't very good, to be told I'm a horrible programmer, to get all this crap about my mod when I knew fully well that these mods were not good. Because after all, I was not the greatest programmer, and I even admitted this to people like Calculavi and Aidan that I was struggling to get these mods going, and I could use some help occasionally if the people had available time, which nobody had time. Nobody cared to really help each other. Even though we made this group, we didn't exactly give each other much help. Although I did actually help Aidan a few times do various things. I would always tell him, like, you can use this methodology. Here's how you do a for loop. Here's how you do a while loop. Here's things to look for. Here's where you can find this class file and stuff. I even helped him eventually port his pipes to use the fluid system that was created. At the time, it was called the liquid system. Before this, we had butted heads because he decided he wanted to make his own liquid system. And I had already previously made this mistake a couple weeks before, and I'm like, hey, no, don't make your own system. You're gonna just be convinced to use the liquid system, because when I made basic pipes, I made my own fluid system too, with its own pressure and hydraulics and everything else, and I ended up porting to the liquid system and eventually the fluid system. So we butted heads over that previously, but this was a couple days before. At least I think it was a couple days. I don't remember the dates very well, but we butted heads over this. But then I got all this heat from him over my mod, and then he started. He ragged me a few times for this, not just on this one, but other mods I made at the time. I had another mod called Assembly Line, which I worked on, and he gave me shit and kind of told me I was kind of freeloading, because at the time we had Brian Man and Cal Claudia working on Assembly Line with me, and I wasn't putting a lot of effort forward into the mod. I did quite a bit of work early on, and then I kind of stepped back because at the time I was studying electrical engineering, and I just didn't have the time to work on mods and stuff. And I was off doing my own thing, and I came back and I started doing more work again, and this is where I think a lot of stuff happened. But I might be getting the time screwed up. This is don't take all this as a good history lesson on everything happened. I am actually writing out what it all happened to another document with a full history, and I'm trying to ask people to get that history on everything, because the thing is, I don't remember it very well, and I'm hoping other people do. But that was the first instance I got into an issue with Aidan. I eventually ended up proving to him that I could write really good code. This is where we got into a competitive nature with each other. So he gave my pump shit, because this is what actually ended up happening, was the pumps were what directly got crap, because when I made the pump, it could only suck a couple blocks below it at a time, because it was a radius-based pathfinder that wasn't very good. It would fail as soon as it could no longer contact water. It would no longer suck up water, which I knew was a problem, and I planned to fix it by implementing something similar to how the Builtcraft pump worked, where you had a pipe go down. Although the thing to know with that pipe going down the Builtcraft pump, that's all visual. It's actually, there's a a system where it checks below and everything. That was the way I planned to fix it. I think I eventually did end up writing code like that for the pump. But what did I ended up doing to him? Because I knew that if we were going to get into this pissing contest, I knew the #1 way to prove to him I could write better code. I took the concept of the red power pump. If people are familiar with red power pumps, you put a grate, you attach the pipe from the grate to another pump, and then from that pump you attach the pipe to it and then to your containers. I implemented that concept straight out. Just didn't look at red power code, didn't try to do anything with that. I knew how to implement it, and I had been planning on doing it for a while, but decided to step back and just go, we'll save that for another day, a rainy day. So this happened to be that rainy day. He decided to have this pissing contest with me and make better his own pumps, make his own pipes, and dog me, so I made red power style pump. This is where this ended up coming into play. You would connect pipes on both sides, and it worked really, really well. You would have multiple fluid inputs, and you could have multiple fluid outputs, and you could drain things. It works kind of like the filler in BuiltCraft right now. And I kind of wish I had kept some pictures of this. Somebody's probably got pictures of this because this ended up being the pump inside of Resonant Induction. It worked about the same way. It became a pretty major feature. Here's some icons for it. And my dog's currently whining behind me. Actually, you know what? See if I can... Because I see a gear system right here. And the gear systems were part of the pump. They kind of worked with it. We actually had an electric and mechanical version. Actually, you can see it right there. See the pump right there? And then you can see the pipes coming out of here. And I believe right there are the drains in which is fluid exiting. And that pump is most likely coming back to this this tank over here, which I think is a railcraft tank. I could be wrong. It could just be a container full of water. But actually, in that image, you can also see we had a sink in fluid mechanics, so you could fill up buckets and stuff. There was quite a few things. But yeah, that's my main issue with Aidan. We had constant issues back and forth. Eventually, he got kicked out of the team because it wasn't just me who had problems with him. Other people of the team ended up having difficulties and stuff with him. And I'm actually going to continue talking here while I walk and go let my dog outside. So if you hear static, I apologize. But Calclavia eventually started realizing that Aidan was an issue, and then a couple other team members started seeing that, and we ended up all voting him out of the team because what ended up happening is we saw that he was in the team not for the team, he was in there for himself. He at some point realized that he could latch onto our team and utilize our growing fame, because UE was actually growing in fame pretty rapidly. We were getting huge amounts of downloads, massive amounts of attention, up until the point we had some problems. I'll discuss those problems in another video, but he had got in here, this team. I don't know what his reason for joining, because I don't have a story. This is all speculation. Might I know that? So take this with a grain of salt, and this is kind of my ideal viewpoint on him. If I'm wrong, anybody can correct me, and Aidan himself can come talk to me at some point. I actually would like to just talk and get this all sorted out, and maybe finally take this dislike to neutral friendship, maybe? I don't know. But we kicked him out of the team and got rid of him because we saw that he was there to still up the fame. And he was sucking up a huge amount of our user base. And he wasn't giving anything back. So he was taking everything from us and was giving us nothing. We weren't getting any attention back. He wasn't directing anybody to any of our other mods. We were always directing people to him. So we were going, like, when people came to Universal Electricity, we were going, hey, we want an industry mod to play with. We go, hey, go play with Mekanism. It's a great mod. Go do it. It's compatible with all of our mods. You can use its power system with our stuff. And that was true for a good while until he eventually made his own power system, and then our stuff no longer became compatible. We ended up getting recompatibility with him eventually when he implemented his own universal cables, which supported RF and IC2, although his had several bugs that I had to tell him how to fix repeatedly. I actually have submitted several pieces of code to his repository base, although he's erased my commit logs on a couple of them. There's, I think, only one left. That was a chunk issue, which I fixed. But yeah, we kicked him out. What else is there? I don't really remember everything, because this is like 5 years ago. But it always keeps coming back up. People always keep asking me what my beef with Aidan, and I don't really even care anymore. I don't have a really that big of an issue with him. Most days I don't care. And most of the time I end up having laughs with it. Like, give me 1 second real quick, I'll show you this picture. So one of my greatest laughs I always have with Aidan, and this actually reminds me, he had another part where he tried to best me. So when I kind of joined UE, the first mod I made was a mod called Guardsman. I actually started modding building AIs. I'm actually really, really good at building AIs too. I just don't do it because I got bored of it. And they take forever to do. But he had built the robot. The robot was built with my ideals. He won't admit this, and nobody else has records of this anymore because the old forum had all this on it. I had designed a mod called Robot Something, which eventually became Artilix. The idea was to build a robotic style race that you could do various other things and interact with. And I had a lot of ideals for robots. I put them all on the forum because, once again, when we made the group, we shared ideals and stuff. I shared all of my ideals. I fully regret this because I've seen people who have some of the records and some of my notes and drawings. Like I saw last year, somebody was showing off drawings and claiming to be theirs, and I'm like, no, those are totally mine. And you can see even my name in the bottom corner of a few of them. And I'm like, those are my original designs I uploaded to Calculavia's forum of various different things. And he had taken the ideal of the robot. Of course, he modified it, so it is partially his original work, and I want to give him mostly credit for it because he did work on it. He made it. He programmed it. It works. It's nice. It follows you. It's got a crafting grid. You can store things in it. But that's all aside because I don't care. I give my ideals out freely all the time, so I'm not going to argue over that. The reason I'm showing this picture, as you see the eye cubes up there, those are individual entities. They can form together to attack things. I have videos up here on YouTube of it actually happening. I don't know if I've got the formation part. I don't think I ever recorded that. This is back in the day when I used to use Fraps for recording, and that thing liked to crash so often, so I'd record things and lose recordings all the time. But I was testing his mod because I did a lot of testing for him. I helped him bug test his mods all the time. I was also bug testing assembly line. You can see it here in the corner over here. That's what I was mainly working on. Those needed power, so I had attached a cube and I was trying to get power and stuff. And I placed his robot down because I was like, because I think somebody was complaining about a bug with the robot. And I was like, I'll place it down and look at it real quick. And I did. I placed it down, and then immediately as soon as I placed it down, this thing shot and killed it. This thing was acting in sentry mode and somehow was misidentifying his thing as a mob, and it was hilarious. I always use it as a joke going, my robots knew I didn't like his stuff and decided they wanted to kill it. And they did all their cool little things and stuff, and yeah. I'm running out of material to talk about because this is spontaneous, this is not scripted. I probably will make a scripted version down the road that will go over all the points better. But to take out of this thing is, I don't really hate Aidan. I just kind of dislike and distrust him because he's proven that he doesn't really do things to help other people. He's more in it for the fame and glory. And to quote his exact words that he told me, he wants Mekanism to have a little bit of everything and to be the only mod you have installed. Those were his direct words that he had given me. And he got this idea from Calclavia too, so I kind of should blame Calclavia for this, but I blame Calclavia too often, and I've been trying to get into a habit of giving Calclavia a lot more respect because he actually deserves it. Calclavia's done a lot of good work. Without him, I wouldn't have had ICBM. I wouldn't have learned how to program. I wouldn't have learned anything. I probably would have given up on modding a long time ago without those guys. Same thing for Aidan. I mean, I may dislike him, but because he decided to be competitive with me, it forced me to become better. If I didn't have somebody to competition with, I probably still would have sucked. I probably would have only marginally got better. I would have just did my normal thing. I mean, I would have had some nice mods eventually, but I wouldn't have gone anywhere. You can see this happen to me right now where I'm not really in competition with anybody, so I have no stride to build the best content. I have no stride to go forward. I mean, look, I'm still back in 1.7.10. There's nobody who's forcing me to update. And every time I go to my user base and go, hey, do you guys care if I update? You guys go, nah, you can do whatever you want. And I guess that's kind of problematic, but I'm going to think that one through later. What else do we got to talk about here? I'm out of material. So I'm going to close this video off, and if you guys are going to rage at me in the comments. Don't open up on Twitter. Don't attack me over other things. I don't give a crap. I'll ignore you just the same, etc., etc. Until next time, whatever. More videos. But yeah, completely out of content.